All right. Steve in Florida. How can we help today?
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, not
Doing
too
pretty
bad.
good.
On your mind.
That's good. I'm calling because I'm in the process of becoming atheist, walking away from religion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the hardest things for me is giving up the hope of seeing, like, my son died when he was 5 of brain cancer. So,
Sorry to hear that.
the hope of seeing them again that religion gives you, even though logically, there's no good reason to believe it.
Yeah.
You still have that hope, and it's it kind of sucks when you realize that that's not real.
Yeah. No,
So I just
that's an
wondered
incredible pain.
if you had any advice on, how to help get through that.
Yeah. As far as the how, I think that's going to differ for everybody. The thing I probably really want to stress is that you don't have any sort of timetable or quota that you need to hit. I think the trap that a lot of folks fall into, especially if they're in a place where they're beginning to deconstruct their faith, is everything becomes very logical and narrow, and this is what makes sense, and this is what is true. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but you have to be really careful not to just should all over yourself. You can say, well, I shouldn't feel this way, or I shouldn't think that way, but that's not going to change whether or not you do think that way. And we can recognize that our feelings are here, and they matter, whether they make sense or not. We can have thoughts and emotions that aren't rational, and we need to treat them differently than the things that are rational. But if we're just beating ourselves over the side of the head over and over again, saying, oh, I shouldn't think that, I shouldn't think that, I shouldn't think that, then we're really not getting anywhere closer to healing. As far as how to cope with that incredible loss and how to wrap your head around all of this, I can imagine it being a really painstaking process. What has your experience been up to this point? How are you feeling? What's working?
Well, I don't know if I definitely understand what you're saying, because it's very easy to kind of fall into almost a nihilistic view as you go through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that, something you've believed your whole life is, a lie. And, as you come to grips with the fact that you essentially have believed in Santa Claus, as an adult
Sure.
for your whole life, it makes it, it's difficult. I don't know what works because I haven't found it yet, but the single most difficult part of it for me, is that hope, because that's the one thing, that gets you through when you have a loss like that. At least it was for me at the time of his death. And giving up that hope, that's the most difficult part of walking away entirely from, these beliefs that I no longer believe. And for me, seeing how Christian nationalism is starting to, take over in this country and things, those are the kinds of things that have pushed me away from religion, more and more so, and got me to the point where, I no longer believe. The only thing that is still remaining is, a desire to hold on to that hope, even though I know that logically that's not,
Yeah.
There's no good reason to believe that either. So,
I think, Christy, I think you're trying to get to this, and I'll maybe a little more blunt than you just were. It's okay to have that hope, even if it's irrational. It's okay to have a few irrational things in your life, as long as they're not hurting you or hurting anybody else. It's okay, and to have this irrational hope that you'll see or talk to your son again. That's okay. You don't have to be perfectly rational every single day. It's not possible. We have plenty of evidence to show that if you take out the emotional centers of the brain, we cannot make decisions. We can't make the decision to eat We know we have to. We may agree that we have to, but we can't make the decision to do so if you take out and burn out the emotional centers of our brain. So it is absolutely 100% okay for you to have this irrational hope, as long as it's not negatively affecting you, right? Or anybody else. It's okay.
Right. Well, I guess that's encouraging, at least for now, until I get to the point where I don't feel like I need it to, get out of bed every day.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that advice, even though, it goes, part of it needs, it goes against wanting to believe as many true things as I can and not believe as many false things as I can.
Well, and that word belief is tricky, right? Like, what is it that we actually believe? And is it only what we can demonstrate on paper, or do we subconsciously carry around with us beliefs, rational and irrational, tested and untested, all the time? Ultimately, I guess what I would really like to encourage you to do is just notice the places where you're being aggressive towards yourself. Notice the places where you're saying, this is how I need to feel, or this is wrong, or this needs to be fixed. This is a problem in the way that I'm thinking. And just recognize that you don't always have to make sense. It's great when you do. I mean, that's sort of the goal. That's what we're aiming towards. But punishing yourself, being upset with yourself, being angry at yourself because there are thoughts and feelings that you don't like or that you don't want to have is not going to make those feelings go away. It's just going to complicate them. I hate to say it, but when we're talking about grief, you have to just move through it at a pace that feels right for you. So don't feel like you owe it to anybody to fix these feelings. Just allow yourself to feel them as you can while caring for yourself in the best possible ways. And of course, being in community, working with a qualified professional, having support from the people around you. I mean, these things really, really do matter. And I don't want to make any assumptions about your life, Steve, but I just want to really stress that as you go through this process, there's not a right way to do it. There's not an obligation to do it at any particular pace. But whatever you're doing is not going to be benefited from self-criticism, is not going to be benefited from harming yourself or being aggressive or angry at yourself. If you can just accept, I have these miserable feelings and they're miserable, well, that's probably going to feel pretty miserable. But it is part of the path towards healing, and I hope that you can find support and kindness and comfort and nourishment so that those miserable parts are maybe just a little bit more bearable.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I would say that your words were those things more than you know. So thank you for that.
Hey, glad that we can do anything at all. I really appreciate you being brave enough to kind of call in and just share your experience with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, well, hey, thank you. You guys have a good one.
All right, you too.
Appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later.